Happy July 4th, America. Happy Independence Day. And speaking of independence, I want to talk to you about what I call the Great Breakup document, otherwise known as the Declaration of Independence. So I'm going to read to you the words of the Declaration of Independence because I realize many of us haven't read it and many people have read it many years ago. So to honor all those brave colonists that came to this country and started what I call the Great Experiment, which became the United States of America, I thought we'd start by looking at the very first document where we declared, I'll say we, as in the brave colonists and our founding fathers, declared their independence from Britain. These are very powerful words, and these are words that we all might want to consider these days. So let me go ahead and read these words to you. All right, so this was Declaration of Independence. There are three main documents that this country is based on. Declaration of Independence, where we declared our independence from Britain. The Articles of Confederation, which was in 1781. Those were the rules, basically, that the colonies decided to abide by. The third document was the U.S. Constitution, which was ratified in 1887. So if you look at those dates from 1776, 247 years ago, on July 4th, 1776, we began our journey to form this country, and it started with the Declaration of Independence. Then about 11 years later, we passed the U.S. Constitution, which set out our rights and our responsibilities, what the powers were for each branch of government, etc. So let me read to you the words of the Declaration of Independence. I should start again here. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, that means Britain, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So that's the beginning paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. They're giving written notice. This Declaration of Independence is written notice to the King, King George. These are the reasons why we're declaring our independence. Second paragraph. We hold these truths, not beliefs. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, not endowed by the government as many other countries give their citizen rights. No, these are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable, that means not separated. That means these are rights that cannot be taken away. Certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is what the colonists decided, which was important: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Are there any other countries that talk about happiness? But it's in our Declaration of Independence. We're seeking happiness, life, and liberty. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. In other words, the government has power because the people give the government power, not the other way around. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people, not the government. It's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, the government, to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them, the people, as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Can you imagine thinking about all these ideas, putting it down on paper, talking to all the other colonies, all the other colonists, and coming together to write this Declaration of Independence to give to the king to say, we're done. We want to be independent. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. So don't change governments on a whim. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In other words, men, according to the Declaration of Independence, people are more likely to suffer than to say, no, we're done, and to abolish the form of government. And in this case, these were the 13 British North American colonies. They were answering to Britain, right? In America, answering to the laws of Britain. Okay, then to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses, that's what they call these, long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces them a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right. It is the people's right. It is their duty. It is the people's duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Patient sufferance of these colonies. Amazing, amazing words. Patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. In other words, being under the rule of Britain. The history of the present King of Great Britain, King George, the history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object, the purpose, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. These are their words back in 1776. And then they lay out basically the 27 reasons why they're declaring their independence. And these are the 27 known as the long train of abuses. He, the king, refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws. He has dissolved representative houses for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of people. He has obstructed the administration of justice. He has made judges dependent on his will alone. He has erected a multitude of new offices to harass, I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, to harass our people. He has kept us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. That means the colonies had their own charters. He has effected to render the military independent and superior to the civil power, the people's power, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. In other words, requiring people to open up their homes and house soldiers. And again, I'm just highlighting these 27. I'm not going to read all 27. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. And here's the most known one. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Taxation without representation. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. For depriving us of the benefits of trial by jury. For taking away our charters. Each colony had their own charter, their own rules. For suspending our own legislatures. That means stopping the colonies from having taking legislative action, and for waging war against us. And it goes on. There's many other ones here. So I'll get back to the rest of this. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. They petitioned the king. They have told the king. They have put him on notice before. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant. It is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. They considered themselves free people. They looked at the king as a tyrant. Now, have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren? We have warned them from time to time of the attempts by their legislature to extend unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. That means the Parliament was deciding what was going on in the British colonies in America. The colonists said, no, we don't have representation. Those are arbitrary, and therefore we shouldn't have to abide by them. We have appealed to the native justice, and let me see. They too have been, the British brethren they too have been deaf to the voice of justice. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, the British brethren, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the vicissitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them, the colonies, and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they, the colonies, have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, that's trade, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we, the colonies, the 13 colonies, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And it's signed by 56 colonists from Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Massachusetts, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire. Samuel Chase signed it. Ben Franklin signed it. Sam Adams, John Adams, Roger Sherman, John Hancock, and many others signed this declaration, putting the king on notice that they were going to declare their independence and the reasons why. And that's the Declaration of Independence, which began the great experiment. These colonists didn't know if they'd be able to survive without Great Britain. They didn't know if they could hang together. They didn't know if they could, make a living or make a life independent of the government of Great Britain. So eventually, they created their own rules known as the Articles of Confederation, which was passed in 1781. So 5 years later, the colonies got together, submitted their own draft constitutions, right? And then all of that was taken together. And by the way, Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. Why do we have 13 stripes in our flag? 13 colonies. Why do we have 50 stars? 50 states. Okay, so 1776, Declaration of Independence was sent to the king. 1781, the Articles of Confederation, setting up the rules amongst the colonies, the free and independent states. 1787, the U.S. Constitution was ratified. And then we had the Bill of Rights. I think it was 1791, I think, which were the 10 amendments. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, etc. First Amendment, right to free speech, free press, freedom to assemble, practice religion, etc. Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. The Fourth Amendment, just the most popular ones, etc. The Fourth Amendment is no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. So here is an example of due process. The colonies are giving written notice of the Great Breakup, declaring their independence from Britain. So they draft out. I mean, can you imagine all of these colonists coming together and saying, you know what? Taxation without representation doesn't work for us. All these arbitrary acts by the king doesn't work for us. The long train of abuses. So they come together and they decide to declare their independence from Britain, and eventually decide to create a nation which becomes the United States of America, and come up with the rules and the rights and responsibilities, otherwise known as the U.S. Constitution. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. I mean, can you think of another country that the people grant themselves the rights, not the governments? It's the people, we the people. And that's what's in our United States Constitution. So, as we all celebrate July 4th, I'm wishing you a wonderful July 4th. Celebrate our independence. And, think about all the people that have been so brave and so courageous to put together declaring independence, to saying, nope, we're done, to having the courage and the bravery to stand and to declare their independence, and to eventually create their own government, which, the United States Constitution lays that out. And what an experiment it has been. 247 years ago, July 4th, 1776, we, as Americans, began this journey declaring our independence and creating a new nation and a new government, a constitutional republic. So have a wonderful July 4th. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave your comments. I want to know what your analysis is. And by the way, hit that thumbs up if you like the video, but also I'm thinking about doing a live stream based on one of the recent cases. The Supreme Court has handed down some interesting decisions lately, one of which is that web designer case out of Colorado, where a web designer under the First Amendment has the right not to be required to design wedding websites for gay couples. So a lot of these decisions are very interesting. The arguments laid out by both the majority. It was a 6-3 decision. And the points raised in the dissent are also very interesting. So if you're interested in doing a live stream on that, or any other suggestions you have, maybe we'll look at the Articles of Confederation. Maybe we'll look at the U.S. Constitution. To celebrate our independence as Americans. So thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button. Please do subscribe if you want to contribute to me making these videos. I'll put a PayPal link in the description box below the video. And by the way, this video is for education information. It's simply my analysis, my opinion. Have a wonderful July 4th.